and good evening to everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. I welcome you all to this panel discussion. My name is Akshat Vaid. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. I work with Everest Group, which is a global research and advisory organization focused specifically on the global services industry. I represent our engineering services market coverage, and as an analyst in the engineering services world, it's a pleasure to be here and to discuss something as pertinent as the Industry 4.0 space. Thank you once again for joining us for what promises to be a great discussion on the theme of helping enterprises achieve seamless Industry 4.0 adoption. I could not have asked for a better set of panelists to join me for this discussion. First up, we have Anand Parmeswaran, who is a global business head of Scient Digital. He has 25 years of experience in the IT industry and is a Scient veteran. Thank you for joining us today, Anand.
My pleasure.
My second panelist for this discussion today is Crispin Blackwell. He's a managing partner at Creates Digital. As a former CTO at Big Pond, he has led enterprise product engineering in the mobile and IoT engineering space, among other executive roles. Crispin, it is a pleasure to have you here today with us. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Right. So before we go ahead with the discussion, I would like to invite Anand for a special announcement. Anand, over to you.
Thank you, Akshat. Thank you for that wonderful introductions. It's been a year since the pandemic struck the entire world. This last year has tested us as individuals, organizations, and communities. And I hope each and every one of you and your families are keeping safe. I would like to salute the spirit of Hanover Messe in putting together a virtual event of this scale during the ongoing pandemic. We celebrate the spirit of resilience, and I would also like to thank NASCOM for enabling our participation at Hanover Messe this year. I'm very excited to be here, and scientists very excited to be here. So speaking on the topic of Industry 4.0, enterprises implementing Industry 4.0 solutions stand to create tremendous economic value, estimated upwards of $3.5 trillion over the next 4 to 5 years. As our COO Karthik mentioned earlier in his keynote address on resilient manufacturing yesterday, the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the adoption of Industry 4.0. We believe that the most successful implementations of Industry 4.0 will need to combine domain knowledge, depth of technical expertise, and engineering excellence, and a very deep understanding of the underlying business processes. These have been unique strengths of Scient, which makes it a partner of choice across Fortune 500 customers globally. With more than 3 decades of expertise in the digital, design, engineering, geospatial, and manufacturing domains, we bring you IntelliScient, Scient's new suite of Industry 4.0 solutions that will accelerate digital transformation for asset-heavy industries and help drive IT/OT convergence. Our six digital solutions, powered by the interplay of nine technology studios, will drive smart automation, intelligent supply chain, end to end visibility of workflow and assets, and next generation workforce solutions that are driving the ITOT landscape. Don't forget to log on to our website and explore our solutions and success stories further. My team and I are a few clicks away to help you on your digital transformation journey. You can reach us on our HM21 exhibitor showcase or just message me on LinkedIn. Over to you, Akshat.
Thanks, Anand. And first of all, congratulations to you and the entire Cyan team, and good luck as you take these offerings to market. Now on to business, right? We have limited time, so let me dive right in. I think it is very well established that Industry 4.0 is the most strategic transformation pillar within this whole world of manufacturing and operations, and the other peripheral areas such as procurement, supply chain, and other, right? At the core of it, we are talking about the latest phase in the industrial revolution, which is a fairly technology intensive transformational leap. And as we saw in that video as well, it's all about the convergence, the cyber physical convergence, the IT OT convergence. Now, my first question to this panel, Crispin, let me start with you. So we're talking about technology intensive convergence, but we got to acknowledge the fact that the last few years technology has changed tremendously, while Industry 4.0 as a phenomena is nearly a decade old now, right? What, in your opinion, is the state of affairs right now from a digital and technology development standpoint? Has this changed the nature of Industry 4.0 investments on one side, and on the other side, the outcomes that people are now looking out of their investments?
Great question, and thank you, Akshat. If you think about what's changed so much, probably in the last 12 months, right? It's the rollout of 5G, firstly, which is delivering carriage, and carriage in a different way that all of the previous Gs didn't deliver. You had previously incredible improvements in speed and in building coverage. But with 5G, now you're getting this massive ability to connect lots and lots and lots of devices and be able to run those sessions with network slicing, where you can actually have dedicated network connectivity that sets the latency and sets the uplink speed and sets the downlink speed and enables security for those services, which we just weren't able to do on a wireless network before. Now, that combination is really starting to enable all of that vision, the power that's in Industry 4.0. When we think about how much that's been achieved with autonomous vehicles in the last little while, and now with autonomous robots, it's because you're cutting the wires and you're providing them with a secure network and a capability to do something remotely, to move around. Which brings me to the second really big change that's happened. And that's the maturing of artificial intelligence and machine learning that's driving automation to move beyond that capability of following strict process steps, and now moving that into an ability to learn within a series of parameters and become smarter at how it behaves. I guess that picks up exactly Janon's presentation, and the point around intelligence is now key. And if that's what really has happened in the last year, we've accelerated our ability to put intelligence right the way through our capabilities. And that's what people are now taking to market faster.
So, those are great points, right? I think the 2 or 3 themes that you touched upon, 5G, robotics, and AI, those are great, right? In terms of the expectations of enterprises, like what different outcomes do you believe they are chasing today than they were, say, 5 years ago when these technologies weren't as mature as they are today?
Look, the thing that keeps coming through now is, as enterprises are looking, they're thinking about how do they get more certainty about their supply chain. We spent many years moving towards just-in-time type processing. Now you want to have much more detailed analysis and intelligence about what is going on. So being able to have better data analytics, being able to make your processing go faster, taking advantage of what you can do by computing at the edge of the network rather than having to run back to the data center, being able to take advantage of enabling your network components to make your machines talk to each other and talk smarter, so that the business logic is, again, not driving all the way back to the business. You're actually having the business logic happening between the machines. Those are the transformations, and that's what's driving what's people are really looking for, which is throughput, resilience, and cost out.
Fantastic. Well put. Let me switch gears here. Anand, one question to you more towards the adoption of Industry 4.0, right? Look, the journey to Industry 4.0 adoption has not been easy for enterprises, right? We speak to a lot of enterprises on this theme. While most enterprises agree to the criticality of Industry 4.0, not many have gone ahead and scaled their investments, right? What, according to you, are the real challenges on ground, which are kind of impeding them? Is it to do with the technology that Crispin spoke about, or are there other factors as well?
I think it's more of a natural evolution in the digital transformation journey. We still are in the very early stages of the digital disruption, right? I might be exaggerating here, but I would say that we are in the equivalent of the email and electronic file transfers, of the internet era. They felt like a big disruption then, but it was very much the beginning of the overall internet revolution. The truly big disruption started happening after a sizable number of business people understood the possibility of the technologies. And at this point in time in digital, I believe that somewhere between maybe 15 to 20% of the workforce truly understand digital. But this will change rapidly over the next 2 to 3 years, when we will see, closer to 50, 60, 70% of the workforce understanding the power of digital, and the adoption of Industry 4.0 will explode at that point in time. And once that happens, we believe that once the adoption improves, more and more companies are going to find out that they are not set up for leveraging, right? I mean, the way that they do their business, the way that their organizations are set up, and the way that their systems and processes are architected will need to change. Everything from data availability to master data management to enterprise service bus and orchestration, which we are seeing, grow very, very fast. That's only going to accelerate as more companies find out that, they need to kind of bring all that together. And lastly, there is a critical shortage of good digital talent in the industry. And unfortunately, that's a problem that's only going to get worse in the adoption.
Makes sense. And do you, and I kind of completely agree that talent is a huge issue. It is in fact a fairly big issue in general across digital transformation, where it manifests into something even bigger when you talk of Industry 4.0, where you're talking about an amalgamation of technologies, not really just one tech that you need to look for the talent for, right? With that in perspective, what is your best advice to enterprises when they look at scaling their workforce in this space?
I don't see, a one solution to this problem, Akshat. I think what we are seeing and what we will continue to see is companies across the world are going to train a large amount of workforce in digital technologies. And this is going to include people who are, the existing IT talent, fresh talent that, comes from universities, and also people who have non-IT skills, right? And that brings me to, I would say, a second aspect of what I think will be helpful in solving the digital crunch, which is we will start seeing more and more standard platforms, right, emerging for use cases, right? And these are going to be products and platforms which are going to be low code, no code platforms, reducing the need for intensive, programming or understanding of, the underlying technology. They are going to be more configurable and much more easily learnable platforms. And lastly, I think digital is also, especially extreme automation or robotic process automation, is going to unlock a number of knowledge workers and create a pool who will then get inducted into the digital workforce. I think these are the three, I would say, uh, activities or developments that will start to solve the problem of talent, but it is going to
Mhm.
take a few years for this to play out. At least for the next 3 to 5 years, I see the demand for talent consistently outstripping the supply of digital talent, Akshat.
Got it. Got it. Another aspect related to adoption is how the last few quarters have fared for the entire world, right? So COVID-19 hit pretty much every other aspect of enterprise, right, including the manufacturing and operations space. So, has there been a fairly strategic shift in terms of how enterprises are thinking about Industry 4.0 adoption because of COVID-19? What do you think?
Look, I think what's happened, as you point out, is that digital transformation was forced to happen in the last 12 months. As workforces had to start working more and more remotely, as supply chains needed greater levels of intelligence, the world just transformed in ways people didn't predict. It's very timely that we think about this whole supply chain piece. The recent issue in the Suez was one where you saw the whole world suddenly watching one ship and looking at how the global supply chain can stop in one place. Now we're moving at a time where there is need for greater understanding of all of our inventory, needing to have greater understanding on how things can work, being able to enable workforces to do and deliver product while working more remotely, and to be able to do all of that while ever more wary of the need for greater resilience and greater security. And those are the things I think that this year has seen so much of. There are a few large companies that haven't faced and now started to deal with the big security issues. We're starting to see those come through and being dealt with on a regular basis. You need to have strong, secure network and IT capability to make the whole Industry 4.0 work seamlessly. And we're at an absolute transformation point that now we're able to start seeing this and doing it. And the players in the last 12 months have really invested to accelerate over this period. And there's big steps in innovation. I think that's been the really positive side of what's happened during the last 12 months.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the story. Even when we speak to a lot of enterprises, right, I think one thing is fairly clear: the companies who had adopted Industry 4.0, they fared better, while this pandemic created a fairly complicated situations from a operations and supply chain standpoint, and that has kind of now started to trickle down and become motivation for others who've been thinking and maybe sitting on the fence for a while, and now they can actually see the transformation helping people become more resilient. So I think in that sense, it is definitely proving a lot more useful and something that companies will definitely invest much further in going forward. So talking about investing further, Anand, let's talk execution, right? As a company, as a representative of a company which helps enterprises undertake that journey, can you talk about some of the most important execution pitfalls that you see enterprises fall into as far as they going further on this journey that is concerned? And if you can also comment on a couple of best practices associated to that, that'll be very useful.
Sure. Good question, and given the stage that we are in, which is in the early stages of maturity, we are seeing quite a few challenges, which again will kind of play out over the next few years. But I would say that the number one challenge or execution pitfall is something that sounds like a cliche, which is start with the business, not with the technology, right? I think digital transformation is essentially fundamentally business transformation, right? So starting with a clear business goal is the most important element to achieve success. Unfortunately, there are still a sizable number of projects that are technology driven, which are executing business cases which are either not well understood or business cases which are plain unattractive, right? So starting with the business process and the context of the business is very, very important. The second is, there's the question of, okay, do you do a top-down, program management, right? Create a vision and kind of create programs and execute them, or you do bottom-up, with start with the low-hanging fruits and work your way up. We think it's a false choice to ask that question. Because in order to be successful in digital transformation, you've got to do both. You've got to do these simultaneously and in an intertwined way. So you start with an overall, broad understanding of where do you want to get to, what's the roadmap, what's the vision, what are the most important problems for your industry or for your function that you want to solve. It's really important to kind of, start there. But rather than do a 3 month or a 6 month discovery visioning exercise, by which time the ecosystem would have changed, the technology would have changed, it's really important to get to implementation quickly with the low hanging fruits, because as you start implementing the first few business cases in digital, that will help you discover more about both the possibilities that exist as well as the hindrances that exist within your context. So they feed off of each other in terms of you start with a broad roadmap, but look at the low hanging fruits, get to implementation, and iterate as you go forward. That's critical. But third, and I would say the most important thing is when it comes to digital, we believe the risk of inaction is significantly higher than the risk of experimentation. Because even with clear goals and a robust roadmap for implementation, companies are going to see some disappointments in their initial use cases. But rather than kind of hold back or go slow, we believe the right thing to do is to continue, learn the lessons, absolutely, but to continue on the journey. Depending on the size of your company, investing a million, 10 million, or $50 million to get into digital, right? Make it happen on the ground, even if those use cases are not as successful as you expect them to be. The cost of that is going to be significantly smaller in the long term as compared with a company that doesn't adopt, that journey at all.
Got it. I think last couple of questions as we come to the end of this discussion. Fairly related to what you were just talking about, Anand, what do you think is the role of the ecosystem, right? There are lots of execution challenges that you spoke about, right? Where does the ecosystem come in? From all we understand, this is not a job that one entity could do on its own. You have to bring together multiple partners to make it happen, right? What do you think about it?
Absolutely, I think this is a team game. Let me put it in the context of sports, and pardon me because I'm going to use American sports as examples. But to look at the OT implementation, right? OT implementation, you can compare that to a basketball team, right? It's 5 people, on the court and a 13 people roster, right? IT implementation are more like baseball, where you have a 25 people, roster. Digital IT OT convergence is more like football, American football, where you have a 53 people roster, a lot of specific position play, special team, because it is going to take an ecosystem, a consortium of people to accomplish the goals, because there are a lot of moving parts that are being tackled. The critical partners will be the hyperscalers, because those platforms are gaining more and more prominence, more and more capabilities. The existing OEMs, especially those applications or those products which are in the factory floor, in the supply chain, which are sort of deeply kind of entrenched. So the OEMs are going to be important, and the new innovative niche products which solve, which are very specific, and but they really solve a problem. I think the interplay between these three are probably going to be the most important ecosystem play for Industry 4.0, Akshat.
Crispin, I would ask the same question to you, but more pointedly, given where we are on time. What are the top two categories of partners which you believe are going to be critical for enterprises as they undertake this journey?
Look, I won't add a lot. I think, as Anand said, there's going to be the scalers who are going to provide cloud capability, and that's going to be critical. There's a whole piece around making sure that business intelligence can work really well. And so having the right partners that can bring that capability together for you will bring all of your existing infrastructure together to enable it to become automated, to become intelligent. Those would be my summary points.
Awesome. Thanks, Crispin. Thanks, Anand. I think if I were to take a few takeaways, right? Number one, technology is key here, and it's changing, and you got to adapt towards that. Second, talent strategy is critical from what I heard, and you really need to put your brains together to how do you scale on that particular front, because you can't really move ahead without having the right people in place. Third, we do need to start with the business context. And lastly, start small, but definitely start. Don't overthink. I think that's the key message. So thanks, Crispin. Thanks, Anand, for joining today on this particular discussion. I had a pleasure moderating this great discussion. Thanks for all the insights. Thanks to everybody else who joined in to listen to this talk today. Hope you also found it interesting and useful as we did. With that, we come to an end of this discussion. Thanks once again, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Akshat. Thank you.
You.
Bye.